In this video, I'm sharing with you 5 major client red flags that all web designers need to know and how to respond to each one. Hi, I'm Danbee. I'm a web design mentor and a global inclusion specialist based in Switzerland. I help web designers build profitable and inclusive businesses without overworking. To get started, head over to danbeeshin.com/training. So I'm talking about red flags that show up in that initial stage when you're talking to potential clients that you want to recognize and do something about before you commit to working with that client. And number one is the client not having a clear picture of their goals, whether that's for their business or their website. So picture this, you show up for a sales call with a potential client and you ask them some questions to get to know them, and you quickly realize that they can't give you a detailed answer about what they sell, who they sell it to. And when you ask them more questions about what they want from this new website, they give you a vague answer, something like, I just want a good, professional, simple website. This is a red flag because it shows you that this client hasn't really done the work of understanding their own business. And when they don't have a clear understanding of their own business, it's going to make it impossible for you to create a website that is successful, a website that serves a purpose for that business. In a situation like this, I might say something like, thank you so much for sharing. It sounds like you have some really exciting ideas for your business, and I would love to support you. But based on what you've shared, a new website might not be the best investment for your business right now. And I say that because, based on my experience, my clients tend to get the best results from their websites when they have a clearer picture of where they're going in their business, who they're serving, and how you're serving them. So I realize this might not be what you wanted to hear today, but I just want to make sure that if and when we do work together, I am doing everything that I can to make your business a success. And I don't think we have everything in place right now to make that possible. Red flag number 2 is the client saying something like, I can find someone to do this for less. And this typically happens after you've shared your pricing during the sales call. This is a definite red flag because it could mean that your client is more focused on the cost rather than the benefits of working with a professional web designer. And it could also mean that they don't really value your work or your expertise. And all of these things down the line could create some really stressful and unpleasant situations for everyone. As a response, I might say something like, I understand. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. It's important that you find a web designer who is a good fit for you. I've been fortunate enough to work with lots of really amazing clients, and they really value the quality of my work and how easy I make this whole process for them. And that's what I want for you. I want to make sure that you feel that your investment really is worth it. I also want to make sure that if you do decide to move ahead, which I would love, you feel really good about your decision. So at this point, are there any questions I can answer or any concerns that I can address for you while we're on this call? I was in a really similar situation a couple of years ago, and my client actually sent me this email after they signed the contract and paid their deposit. I look forward to working with you. Also, please understand that with the current exchange rate, 10K US dollars is 13,500 in my money. Your price is significantly higher than what I would pay in Australia, but I have chosen to go with you because of your reputation with the Hudson Institute, that's a coaching institute, and the recommendation of S&L. As I said in my original note, they are happy with your work and gave you a strong recommendation. I'll be honest, I felt like I was being attacked when I first read this email, and it got my defenses up. They had already decided to work with me and they paid me their deposit, so why would they send me this email saying all these things? This email just felt so unnecessary and it really confused me. I didn't know why they had sent me this until I processed it by talking to my business coach. And I realized that all they really wanted was reassurance that they had made the right decision by choosing to work with me. They were not 100% sure that they had done the right thing by paying this large sum of money, and they were just expressing those feelings by writing this email to me. And it was really more about what they were going through rather than what they thought about me or anything about me. And if your client says something about being able to find someone else for cheaper during a Zoom call, they're also probably expressing similar feelings about wanting to make sure that they are doing the right thing by making an investment like this. In this particular instance, I wrote back via email saying, I appreciate you putting your trust in me. Please know that I do not take it lightly, and I'm thrilled to work with you. And because I knew that he was feeling a little bit of buyer's remorse, which is when you question your decision to buy something after you've bought the thing, I did a few things differently in this project. One, I replied to his messages a little more quickly than I usually might have done. Two, I gave him lots of detailed updates. And three, I sent him recorded instructions when usually I might have just sent that via written instructions. And all of these things didn't really add up to extra work for me, but it went a really long way to reassure him that things are going really well and that he's going to get an amazing website by the end of the process. And after the website was launched, he gave me one of the best testimonials that I'd ever gotten. So, red flag doesn't necessarily mean that you should turn away that potential client. For me, in this case, it just meant that I had to be prepared to do things a little differently and manage the project slightly differently than I normally do. And it worked out great. But some people disagree and they think that you should turn away all red flag clients. And I'm curious how you feel about this. Would you turn away any and all red flag clients just to be safe and to protect yourself? Or would you still take on a client even if you see some red flags? Tell me in the comments. Another red flag is the client being ready and willing to work with you before they have all the information. I once had a client who was ready to work with me even before we got on the sales call, and this is usually a great situation to be in. But they were so ready that they showed up for the call, and before I could show them what actually went into working together, they just said, send me the contract and the invoice, I'll take care of it. This was my first year working as a freelance web designer, and of course I was thrilled. I cut the call short and I sent them all the paperwork and we got started a few weeks later. But I should have known that this was a red flag because it turns out without all the information shared with this client, we went into this project with very different expectations and very different ideas of how this was going to go. This could have been different if I'd had a previous relationship with this client and we knew each other and how we like to work and what our values are and know that they're aligned, but that was not the case here. Halfway through the project, when I followed up with a client because they had missed a deadline, they replied saying, when I signed up to work with you, I didn't know that I would be working for you. That came as quite the shock. I found this really hurtful because the implication was that, in fact, I was working for them and we were not equal partners in this project. Had I known then what I know now, I would have paused the conversation during the sales call and said, I really loved your enthusiasm. To make sure that we have the same kind of expectations and that we're on the same page, is it okay if I walk you through my process and tell you a little more about what it's going to be like when we work together? That would have saved me a lot of trouble down the line. Another red flag is a client scheduling a sales call and then never showing up with no explanation. You block out 30 to 45 minutes in your calendar, you look presentable, and you show up on time. But then you end up hanging out alone in your Zoom room for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and realize that the client isn't showing up. You check your inbox, no requests to cancel or reschedule. They just don't show up. So you send them an email asking if everything's okay, but you don't hear back. Only days later, they reach out asking to reschedule the call, but they don't offer any explanations about what happened with the first call. This is a really clear red flag. This is likely a pattern with this potential client, and it just shows that they don't respect your time. And if they don't respect your time, it's likely that they won't respect your work either. And because this is likely to be a pattern with this client, you are going to run into other kinds of issues with time sensitive tasks in your project. So here I would respond with an email saying, I hope everything's okay. You missed our scheduled call on the 5th of May. It's important to me to have clear communication with everyone I work with. Could you please share what happened so we can figure out the best way to move forward? And based on their response, I might decide to reschedule our sales call. But if I'm not satisfied with their response, I would reply with, thank you for sharing. Because communication is such a crucial part of my client projects, I don't think that we're a good fit for your website project. Thank you for your time so far, and I wish you all the best. That's all you gotta say. Another major red flag is the client saying lots of really negative things about their previous designers. You might have heard people say things like, no one really understood my vision, or they had really poor communication skills, or they overcharged me for a really simple website, or they took forever to deliver something that really shouldn't have taken them very long. Now, it's possible that all of these things were true, and it's really important as web designers that we understand the experiences that our clients have been through so that we can support them better. But excessive negativity about people they've worked with in the past is a major red flag because it shows that they didn't really care about these designers or respect them. And it could indicate that this client doesn't really value design work or have poor communication skills themselves or have unrealistic expectations from working with a web designer. And all of these things can lead to really stressful projects down the line. And these are the kind of projects that make you hate working with clients. If I wanted to cautiously move forward with a client like this, I would say something like, I'm sorry to hear about your previous experience. It's important to me that we avoid similar situations and we create a much more positive experience. I will take extra care to make sure our expectations are well aligned throughout the project. Is there anything specific that I can do that would help you feel confident about moving forward? If I decided not to move forward with a potential client because of this red flag, I would then say something like, I'm so sorry to hear you've had negative experiences with multiple designers in the past. It's really important to me that every client project is a positive experience for both me and my client, and based on what you've shared, it sounds like I might not be the best person for this project. And if that feels a little too harsh and I wanted to soften that blow a little, I might add, I'm sorry I can't help. These are not the easiest thing to say to anyone, especially during a call. These 2 minutes of discomfort is so worth saving yourself from 2 months of a stressful client project. I'm super curious, have you come across any of these red flags? I would love to hear your story in the comments. And if you have other client red flags to add to the list, please share them in the comments so that we can all learn from each other's experiences. We want to consistently book green flag clients. And to do that, you need a strategy for consistently getting in front of the right kinds of people. And that is what I'm talking about in this next video. So click on through and I'll see you there.